Information contained on the following program, Off the Record, does not constitute specific legal advice for any real case. Off the Record is presented for entertainment and general information only. Listeners are advised to consult an attorney for their specific legal questions and guidance, and not to rely solely on information presented on this or any other law program.
It's time to go off the record. Need insight on how the law works? You found the right place. Legal questions, you found answers. Thanks for joining us. Off the record. Here's attorney Julie Jordan de Palma.
How are you, Bob?
Well, I'm doing okay.
Well, it's nice to be back. We're all going to try to avoid the 24 to 36 inches of snow coming upon us and locking us in houses.
Yeah, 24 to 36. You can put me really solidly in the skeptical column on that one.
I'm throwing myself in that skeptical column too, I'll tell you. I don't think so. I don't feel it.
Well, here's the thing. This is the driver of all of these big weather scare stories is always TV news, generally speaking.
Not the radio. We are not here to scare.
No, we're here to reassure. We're the soft, fuzzy, comfy weather station. But, you know, they've got to get people to watch that TV product, that local TV product, and that's where all the money is in television these days. It's in local news. So what do you talk about in Rochester, New York? You talk about the weather.
Well, for about 10 months of the year, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in markets like the Northeast, and then, you know, out in the Midwest, if you're out in Minnesota or the Dakotas or the Panhandle of Texas or the Panhandle of Oklahoma, we all know what happens there. 90% of the world's tornadoes.
Indeed. Indeed. I just saw a picture online the other day of what clouds look like shortly after a tornado. And they look like this series of little V funnel cups throughout the sky. It's a terrifying picture.
Really?
Never saw it before. I didn't know that phenomenon happened. But
I remember from living in Minnesota what thunderstorms are like out there. And I saw this advisory coming over the wire working at the radio station I did in St. Paul. And, you know, all these warnings about thunderstorms, you know, the front is now 100 miles away. Now the front's 50 miles away. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the big deal with a thunderstorm?
It's just a thunderstorm. It's going to be relaxing to be inside and hear it rolling through. Not so much.
Yeah, you folks have never been through a thunderstorm like they have out in the Plain States.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Is it like an Annie M moment? You feel like
really
the funnel cloud might be coming. You should hit the ground, get in the tub, go in the basement, the whole bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the radio station was out at the transmitter site, much like this one is, and you had all these big towers, right. and they had a big glass atrium that faced the parking lot. And so shortly after seeing this advisory coming over the United Press wire, I happened to be sauntering out through the reception area. And the receptionist was gathering all the stuff off her desk.
Come on.
And heading into an interior room of the building. I said, Pam.
Were you headed to your car, or did you head to the interior room as well?
I went to the studio, which was like a bunker. And this building was concrete. And that storm showed up. And I'm telling you, this solid concrete block building was being shaken like one of Alfie's toys in her jaw.
Listen, I couldn't do it. You know the people who live in hurricane country or tornado alley and they say, I can't imagine living through a blizzard or a snowstorm? Listen, I'll take as much snow as you want to put on me. I'll get some food. I'll have a little coffee, some cookies. We'll bake, whatever. I'm happy to be snuggled up in my house. I couldn't do the tornado hurricane thing.
No.
I don't have it in me. I don't know what it is, the courage, the gumption to get through that. Thank you.
And then in the winter, you know, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the overnight low is 26 below.
That's 26 below.
That's the air temperature.
Right.
That's not the wind chill. And then the high for the day for like 3 weeks in January is 5 below. But they have a different approach to it. They have a whole different mindset.
I don't know how they do it. I mean, when we just went through that spell where it was, 2 below, but it felt between 15 and 25 below, I went outside to get my mail. It felt like my brain froze from my front door to the mailbox. Just like everything in me slowed down once I hit that cold.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how they function in that day to day.
It's just, again, I think it's because they've always been around it. and they're very cheerful about it. It's not they have these big winter festivals, of course.
Sure, they're all playing in it.
Yeah, Minnesota is the land of lakes. They have 10,000 lakes on the license plate, and every square block in Minneapolis has its own little lake. So they're skating, and they go out and they sled and they do all this stuff, and it seems. I don't know, you would set foot outside and it would be a bright sunny day, blue sky, crunchy snow underfoot. Maybe it's 20 below,
right?
But it's just a kind of a different ambiance, I think, as opposed to around the Great Lakes where it's always gray
for 8 months of the year.
Yeah.
It's a hardy bunch out there is what you're telling us.
And we're no slouches either, let me tell you.
No, absolutely not. Here we are. We throw whatever snow at us we need to have. We get through that too. Maybe you get on your internet. Maybe you search around a little bit.
They've got that on computers now.
There you go. So today we're talking about cyberbullying, speaking of computers and getting on. And here's what I have as a question for you, Bob. I read a really great article about cyberbullying and protecting our kids, which ended up being the impetus for this show today. It was in Trial Magazine. It's a magazine that's put out for trial lawyers, plaintiffs' attorneys. It's a national magazine. It had a really excellent article about cyberbullying. And yet I kept getting pulled back into the question of how much have we gotten to a place where we would like to either share or put off some of our parenting roles on the school. What are your thoughts on that?
Not sure I'm following you. You mean you're saying that we're delegating our parental duties to the schools more and more?
I think in some ways we are. And this cyberbullying piece raises that question for me because what we're going to talk about today is schools' authority, the developing case law about whether schools have a duty and when to police, to discipline, to have a hand in the cyberbullying that happens off campus.
How could they?
Well, so that's the question that the article was exploring and that we are going to talk about today. But I guess what I kept coming back to, and I am a mom. I have 2 children. Cyberbullying is a real thing. It happens, but in my quest to always see both sides, I come back to how can schools reasonably police that issue as it's happening off their campus? Well, and in asking them to do that, are we asking them to take a role in parenting and kids' appropriate use of social media and discipline when it's not appropriate? Are we asking them to step into the shoes of parents to a certain extent when we're talking about this off-campus cyberbullying?
Well, a different way of asking that question is, are the schools taking the initiative to step into the shoes of that role? Do they want that? Because I don't know. I know this viewpoint will not shock you coming from me because you and I have talked enough that we know each other well enough that you know that my role towards my view of the role of public schools is a very conservative one. I think that they should be giving the kids the basic skills that they need in terms of basic education, classical education, if you will, and leave all the value-laden stuff, sexual orientation, appropriate behavior, mores, socialization, leave that to the parents. I think that's the appropriate role of the family circle, to use the old term. So
more and more I'm hearing from friends who are involved in the public school system, teachers, administrators, etc., the types of calls and inquiries they get from parents asking them to step into situations or to give guidance on situations for things that are happening in relation to these communications between the kids day to day, including the ones that are clearly happening off campus on these private devices. And it keeps bringing me back to trying to understand where we've evolved to, right? So I grew up kind of in the world still where if I was having a problem with another kid and there was an issue, what happened? Our moms picked up the phone, right? Moms, dads, somebody in the driveway or the sidewalk or the family friend would pick up the phone and say, hey, the kids are having an issue. And somebody would talk through that, and the parents would get involved and supervise and discuss. And to your point of talking about morals and mores and how we treat people and basic social decency, etc., parents were very involved in that day to day. More and more now I'm seeing that parents are asking for assistance from outside, including from the schools. They're asking the schools to step into that role of teaching those communications and appropriate social behaviors.
I think that's a mistake.
So we're going to get into it when we get back.
It's Off the Record with Julie Jordan DePalma, Esquire, on WISL 92.1 FM, 1040 AM. You always get the podcast, too, at WISL1040.com.
The senior citizen in your life deserves to be treated like family in every way, and you deserve the peace of mind that comes from knowing your older family member is getting personalized care, even though they're not yet ready for a nursing home. Consider Alpine Manor, founded in 1971 by owner Tim Kinsella, and just 20 minutes from Rochester in Lima, Livingston County. At Alpine Manor, they're experienced in caring for seniors showing symptoms of confusion, forgetfulness, or memory loss. There are supervised activities and medications, full laundry and housekeeping services, all provided in immaculate surroundings. If you're headed to Florida or other warmer regions, you can go secure in the knowledge that your loved one is well cared for back at home. You could qualify for $1,600 per month VA benefits or $1,100 benefits for a surviving spouse. Alpine Manor, New York State Health Department licensed. Call 346-5880. That's 346-5880 for no obligation tour or information, or visit alpinemanor.com.
Celebrating our 45th year.
At University Eye Specialists, I see many patients who suffer from dry, irritated, or itchy eyes. Sometimes these symptoms are often due to severe dry eye. Over-the-counter eye drops often help, but sometimes dry eye may require treatment with prescription medication. Dry eye is a very treatable medical condition that should be taken very seriously. The health of your eyes is very important to us. Please feel free to call any one of our local offices for an appointment.
In America, we are living longer, healthier lives. The longer we live, the more likely we are to develop eye conditions such as glaucoma, macular degeneration, and diabetic eye disease. If you are over the age of 40, it's important to have a thorough eye examination in order to identify vision-threatening conditions at an early stage. At University Eye, we have the technology and experience to screen for and to treat glaucoma, macular degeneration, and diabetic retinopathy. At University Eye, your vision is our mission.
Phone 1-800-724-0938.
Suffering a serious injury because of medical malpractice, nursing home neglect, dangerous conditions on property, or a car accident can make your life feel like it stands still. How will you provide for your family and overcome this loss? I'm Julie Jordan DePalma. I'm a trial attorney, but I'm also the daughter of someone who suffered a disabling injury. When you need someone to provide compassionate guidance to your family, but be a fearless advocate to your opponent, call the law offices of Jordan DePalma at 585-673-3053.
Nothing impacts your general health and well-being like a healthy smile. Your days of living with broken or missing teeth or struggling through a never-ending cycle of dental repairs are over. State-of-the-art dental implants look like your own teeth but are so much better and restore your healthy appearance and full function. Register for the next free informational seminar about dental implants at LavoniaSmiles.com or call 346-3028. Lakeview Dental, for the smile you've been dreaming of.
You're listening to Off the Record with Julie Jordan DePalma on WYSL 92.1 FM at 1040 AM.
So before the break, we started to introduce our topic today, which is cyberbullying, which is use of cell phones, computers, tablets, social media, YouTube, you name it, to harass, to bully, to target, to send out hurtful messages. And there is this interesting development going on right now as the laws are developing about bullying and how schools have to be involved in that conversation and disciplining for it and preventing it. And now we've added in the technology component. And what's happening right now is we do not have clear law on when a school has a duty to get involved in this type of cyberbullying when it's happening off campus. And as I was reading an article and starting to think through this issue to talk with everybody about it, the question that kept coming back to me is, again, how much are we beginning to see this concept of communication and how it evolves over time? In other words, we said before the break, our moms used to call each other and talk to parent when there were issues between kids. Takes a village, right? There would be some kind of communication about what was going on with the kids. And now more and more, as I sit as a fly on the wall, as a parent with kids in school, or as a friend of people who are teachers and administrators, more and more I'm hearing that instead of doing that one-to-one communication between families, it almost seems like a knee-jerk automatic thing where parents are calling the school.
Yeah.
And reporting the other kid and looking for discipline and looking for intervention. And there is no question that there are times when the behaviors at school that are affecting school, that are disrupting and harmful, should be addressed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more about that piece of how automatic it seems it has become to reach out to the school and ask the school to handle it. And how reasonable is it for schools to police those things? I think parents still have to be a partner and take the laboring oar in teaching kids in this environment we live in, where everything they say can get dumped out to hundreds of people in a second. You know, the basic things all the schools are saying, you know, pass it through the filters. Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it truthful, etc., that they're starting to teach the kids? What do you think?
It's all very well and good to say those things, but that presupposes a good intent. And there are people out there, unfortunately, in every demographic category who have bad intent. I think the place to start, the really fundamental place, is, as Woody Allen says, half the maybe that's a bad example these days, but the quote was half the battle is showing up.
Right.
Pay attention to what your kids are doing. I mean, do they have access to the web in private places where you can't monitor it?
Yeah, and you know, from the parent perspective, I feel the frustration and the unease that is created. I have been the parent that's, you know, doled out the money to Verizon or to these other services which claim that if you pay some appropriate monthly fee, they can help you monitor your kids' use of social media or text messages or time, or shut off the phone after a certain hour so they're not calling people or texting after certain times. And guess what I found? It's almost useless.
Yeah,
you
of course
still have to be the parent that just physically goes and takes the phone and puts it on a shelf or sets up the rule to shut it off.
The phone does not go into the bedroom at night with him.
Correct.
The phone stays out on the charging pad where we can keep an eye on it. There is not a computer that is in a non-common area of the house. It's out where everybody can see it. And I know a lot of parents really disagree with this. Maybe you will too, Julie. But no expectation of privacy on your cell phone in our house.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because, and for the listeners out there, you know, Bob and I have great conversations because Bob's coming from the perspective of thinking he's got a more conservative approach, and I tend to be pretty liberal. I'll put it out there, truly, socially, policy-wise. I am quite liberal, but there are certain aspects of me that are quite conservative. So in terms of law enforcement, supporting law enforcement, those types of things, I tend to be quite conservative. And on parenting issues, I'm quite conservative. So I have always said, despite the people who say, you know, your kids need to learn how to do these things appropriately and have the independence to do it, my feeling on this is you have no independence in my household. So long as I pay your cell phone bill and it's under my contract and you're the child in my house that I'm trying to teach how to be a decent human being, you can bet I'm going to spot check that. Now, a lot of people will say that's wrong, that doesn't teach your child independence. And from my perspective, whether it's right or wrong, I guess I look at it as I'm the parent and I have to teach you the basic steps and concepts so that hopefully when you are off without me and independent, you will recall the things I've told you.
They will recall, and they will be grateful to you. And here's Exhibit 1 for that proposition. And that is that I don't think I've never heard of an example of any kid who said, boy, I'll tell you, I wish my parents had never been so strict when I was growing up.
No, I haven't heard
They
it
never
either.
say that.
Listen,
you never hear that.
Nothing got past Sue Jordan's watchful eye in my house. It just didn't. It seemed like she knew everybody. She had eyes everywhere. And look, I'm grateful because it taught me how to stand up and fly right. I feel quite confident that my husband would say the same thing about his upbringing, that you were going to be a good person and act decently and follow rules and treat people with respect. And if you didn't, you were going to hear about it and learn about it.
Try being the son of a high-profile school board president.
Oh, yeah, please. My mother was a teacher. I sat in her Latin class. What are you getting away with there? 0.
There was a lot of compensating that went on to make sure that there was no favoritism. So, but
absolutely.
I mean, try this. If your child comes to you, your teenager says, "Hey, I want to go over to Jerry's house Friday night, and we're going to do this and that, and this and that." And you say, "Who's going to be there?" And he says, "Well, Jerry's college-age brother is going to be there with some of his frat buddies." And who else is going to be there? Well, there's going to be some of the girls there. What adults are going to be there? Well, Jerry's older brother.
Yeah, Jerry's older brother's not an adult in my household. That gets flat out.
You know what?
Not happening.
You know what? You can't go. and then, of course, you get the, I'm a villain. I'm so unreasonable. All the other kids are getting to go. Why am I the only one that doesn't get to go? You're so hard on me and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I'm not here to be your friend.
Here's the line. Try this. I care too much about you. I love you too much to put you in a situation where you are going to be in danger.
Correct. And now look, from the perspective of cyberbullying, the flip side of that is you can do everything right as a parent for your child. That doesn't mean that every other parent is going to police at all in the same way, to the same extent. And so, look, you can try to do everything you can to insulate your kids, but you can't always do it. And I think that's where parents start to say, schools are going to have to step in and help a little bit, because I think we can agree that there's a lot of information out there about the effects of cyberbullying when kids are targeted, because it's not the same. It's not the same even when I went to school. If somebody's giving you a hard time in lunch or gym or class, you walked away, you got to a different class, and when you went home, it was quiet, right? What was the big thing? People would prank your house, call you 50 times, and that would be annoying, but you could get away from it.
You can't do that now.
You can't get away. It's 24/7. So the cyberbullying definition for purposes of our conversation and what's out there is its use of cell phones, computers, tablets to do the text messaging, the social media, hurtful text messages, spreading rumors. Kids are posting videos on YouTube and other platforms. They're putting together books and stories and conversations about each other on things like Google Docs in school and out of school. They're reposting what people thought were private conversations, and they're dumping them up on other boards for everybody to see. And there is no break. So the reach of the hurtful messages, the humiliation, can reach many people in a matter of seconds. I think that kids feel a level of anonymity now, right? We're pretty brave. It's different to just type a few things out and hit send versus saying that to somebody's face in a hallway or at school. And so I think there's a sense of kind of bravery in what we say. What's the big deal? I didn't say it to your face, and I'm farther away. But the problem comes in when it's ongoing and it's not stopping, and it really is starting to affect the kids. It's disrupting them emotionally, physically. They can't perform at school. They're fearful. And that's, I think, when parents are saying, look, schools are going to have to step in and deal with this issue. And bullying's not a new issue. So, the basic concepts of bullying prevention and policies by way of history. New York State had the Dignity for All Students Act, DASA. How many times as parents of kids in school, we've probably all heard about that.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a bit, right? That was a law in New York State that took effect July 1st of 2012. And a lot of times now, if you go onto your local school board's website, you can even see, a lot of times it's right even on the homepage, Dignity for All Students, who that Dignity for All Students coordinator is, how you can make reports, etc. But DASA also had this amendment that came into effect July 1st, 2013, that also recognized that bullying was more than the typical harassment and physical aspects we've thought of in the past, but it also can include cyberbullying, and that cyberbullying certainly can originate off campus. And it started to try to outline these elements of when does a school start to become involved, if that's going on. So the messaging, however it's happening through a cyber means, has to disrupt the educational process. It has to be impeding the ability of a student to learn or causing some type of devastating effect on their health and well-being. And then this is also a tricky part. There has to foreseeably be a way to show that it is creating a risk of a substantial disruption within the school environment. That concept of substantial disruption is really at the heart of all of this. So in 2012, and then kind of that same July 2012 legislative session, there was also a law that was introduced, which was the law to encourage the acceptance of all differences. LEAD was the acronym. That seems to never have gotten out of the Rules Committee in the New York State Senate, but it was what that was going to try to do was both address conventional bullying and cyberbullying in a more thorough way. In particular, the impetus there was highlighting the problems with this because of the tragic number of suicides that were happening because people were finding out that kids were being harassed online and through the social media platforms and again, couldn't get away from it to try to recover from it. It was defining bullying in a much broader manner. It was focusing on effects. Again, that one seemed to never get out. But nonetheless, I think more and more times parents have had this true rallying cry. In some ways, I think to their credit, and in some ways, I think we've got to maintain what our role is as parents too. But for schools to do more, that schools had to be more involved. And we started to see lawsuits about bullying. So some of it, I think, also comes from a risk management perspective, right? The schools have to start to think about where's our liability and are we going to get sued for this if we have some awareness of what's going on. And so there are practical methods. It's very clear that schools have the authority to regulate cyberbullying.
Even off campus?
Even at very early stages. But there's no clear law on when the schools have a duty to do it. So yes, schools have the authority to regulate cyberbullying, even if it's happening off campus. But again...
How does that work?
Well,
I mean, you're probably going to get into this, but I mean, at first blush, you think,
yeah, right.
Well, what can they do? I mean, the internet is not centered on the school campus.
The internet is not centered on the school campus, so it all keeps coming back to this concept of does it create a substantial disruption? And so where does that authority flow from? So the first piece of it is codes of conduct. Right? What happens at the beginning of every school year for parents? You get the big packet. Here's your teacher, here's your schedule, and here is our code of conduct. So the New York State Education Law, it's section 2801 and 2801-A, for those who might want to look it up, requires schools to develop and disseminate a code of conduct year by year. And it includes disciplinary measures that are taken where there are incidents of physical force or harassment, but almost every code of conduct that you'll pull up now talks about bullying. And now if you pull them up and you look at them, they also start to include the concept of cyberbullying and when they're going to do it. So these codes of conduct in the education law require schools to have safety plans in effect to create safe school environments. What's that even mean? Safety plans have to be these strategies to improve communication among and between students and staff. That's where we see all these things of respect for others and how we're going to communicate, and what are we going to communicate, things that are truthful and honest and necessary. It also requires that schools have some method of reporting potentially violent or harassing incidents. So whether that's creating a forum to discuss bullying or harassment, physical issues, that you had to assign or designate some type of mentor for reporting. That's usually this DASA conduct officer person. Establishing anonymous reporting mechanisms. So the ability to discipline for violations of code of conduct and for traditional forms of bullying has been there for a long time. Now we're seeing the cyberbullying piece added in over the last few years. We'll talk some more when we get back.
Absolutely. Off the record, she is Julie Jordan DePalma. Thank you so much for joining us for this program, and we'll be right back.
She lies and says she's enough time. Can't find a better man.
Insulation, It's a smart idea since it keeps wind from whistling right through your windows, summer heat from your attic from baking you alive, or cold floors in the winter from turning your toes blue. And maybe you know that Icynene foam insulation is the best smart idea since it gets into spaces other insulations can't touch. Icynene fills small openings and gaps in your walls and around windows and doors that add up to big heating and cooling savings, as much as 50%. But the experts at Birch Lumber and Building Supplies in Perry want to remind you, no matter how great the material, only proper installation assures you that your Icynene insulation will give you the ultimate in comfort and energy savings. You can always identify a Birch insulation customer, from their comfortable smile to the extra money they enjoy every day from utility savings. Don't trust your insulation project to any here today, gone tomorrow guy with a pickup truck and a sprayer. Call Birch Lumber and Building Supply, Washington Boulevard in Perry, 237-6128. Do it today and start saving.
Suffering a serious injury because of medical malpractice, nursing home neglect, dangerous conditions on property, or a car accident can make your life feel like it stands still. How will you provide for your family and overcome this loss? I'm Julie Jordan De Palma. I'm a trial attorney, but I'm also the daughter of someone who suffered a disabling injury. When you need someone to provide compassionate guidance to your family, but be a fearless advocate to your opponent, call the law offices of Jordan De Palma at 585-673-3053.
Eisen Rochester is a full-service ophthalmology office, and we specialize in general ophthalmology, taking care of people from childhood to adult and seniors. We do general eye exams. We specialize in cataract surgery, corneal surgery, and disease, as well as LASIK surgery. We also have a full-service optical shop and contact lens fitting service.
Visit Eisen Rochester at 1157 Fairport Road.
At Family Furniture in Perry, get everyday savings without big chain store hassles. Find out why Family Furniture is the shopping destination for thousands all over the region. Need a new mattress? Come in and try their all-new Echo Gel infused memory foam, or the solid latex styles for the finest support and comfort available today. Instead of the big Rochester showrooms, shop Family Furniture in downtown Perry, serving you for over 65 years. Open Thursday and Friday nights till 7, Saturdays till 4.
At Finger Lakes Gaming and Racetrack, making you feel like a top dog is what we do. Try your luck on our 1,500 video gaming machines and enjoy Finger Lakes Gaming's award-winning Vineyard Buffet. Or watch your favorite team on the big screen at Remedy Bar and Lounge. Hey, when's the last time you felt like a top dog? Go fetch that feeling at Finger Lakes Gaming and Racetrack, Route 96 in Farmington. And check us out at fingerlakesgaming.com. Must be 18 to play video gaming machines.
We're keeping it legal with Julie Jordan De Palma on WYSL 92.1 FM and News Power 1040 AM.
So before the break, we were talking about cyberbullying and where's the authority for schools to be able to do that. And it's coming from the Dignity for All Students Act. It's coming from the New York State Education Law, which requires these codes of conduct that the schools have and enforce, and which gives them the ability to discipline for violations of that code of conduct. And more we're seeing the definition of bullying expanded to not just the physical bullying or harassment that we might think of automatically, but to the cyberbullying piece, kids using their cell phones, text messages, social media to harass one another, to cause harm, to cause humiliation, to really make people feel terrible. And that reach can be immediate and automatic into large amounts of people quickly now. So the issue, though, is we can talk a lot about schools' authority to be able to do that, but it becomes harder and harder to determine, and it's not clear yet in the law, when do schools actually have a duty to be doing that versus just their authority. And it seems more and more that schools are saying, we're not sure we want to wait for the courts to truly weigh in on that duty piece. We've got to think about our own risk management, too. And so we're going to at least take steps, both because parents are asking us and because we have a potential risk, to develop some policies and procedures that do something to deal with it. But there's just not useful law. And why not? Because people sue out these bullying cases, but sometimes they're getting settled before the case law actually hits the books.
Well, what is the cause of action? Is it harassment, or is it intentional infliction of emotional distress?
Well, there's a lot of different things. Could it be the intentional infliction? It could, but really a lot of these things are focusing on negligent supervision, violations of the Section 504, civil rights. It's most times it's focusing on the negligence of the school for not dealing with the supervision and having noticed that there's an issue between two kids and not addressing it. And so therefore it's reasonably foreseeable that there's going to be an interaction between these kids that's harmful and that's a problem, and that the school was on notice of it.
I think it just occurs to me as the D word, the duty thing. I just keep coming back to duty. Traditionally, schools have a duty to educate students. They're not to be guarantors of freedom from social harassment, even off campus.
And that's the piece that kept coming back for me. As a parent, I want my kids to be in an environment where they can be safe and free from harassment. I think we all feel that way. But I just wonder how reasonable is it to ask the schools to take on this duty for things that are happening off campus? Because what are the practical ways that they are going to police that? Are we now asking them to have, get the usernames and profiles of all the different kids in the building and to have somebody that's scanning and looking at those things? They clearly don't have a duty to do that. A lot of times what's happening is the parents are calling to complain about interactions that they observe or see between the kids. And again, when you talk about creating this duty, what are the practical ways that we are going to expect schools to be able to do it? And to watch.
And another thing occurs to me, too, is the old be careful what you wish for. If you are looking for this degree of vigilance and this degree of involvement in your child's life, is this something that you really want? Because there's a price that goes with this.
I think that's right. Is this something you really want? And certainly we agree that where there's really substantial harm to a kid and substantial threats to the kid, somebody should be stepping in. The flip side is also, look, middle school kids aren't the brightest kids yet in terms of social awareness, and they're developmentally, you can pull out the medical literature that talks just about how kids' brains develop. And
little human beings under construction.
And when they get to a point where they realize that there is something outside of themselves and their own thoughts, and what do I mean by that? True cause and effect, and awareness of cause and effect, and how their actions are going to affect someone else, and thinking beyond the immediacy of right now. And so kids are going to do stupid things and make mistakes. So the flip side is, do you want the schools to be involved in policing all of these text messages that may be stupid and inappropriate, but maybe somebody can get a handle on and quickly deal with? Or do you want them to really be ready when the parents call with every complaint about Johnny and Tim or Mary and Susie and everything that's going on there? Where's the line? Where's the line of stupid communication and truly something that is harmful and hurting somebody and needs intervention because maybe all the parents aren't involved, or maybe people just didn't know, and it's hard to police for everybody? Where were you going to draw the line?
Yeah, and there's a flip side to this too, again, and that is how many times have we witnessed the phenomenon of the snow plow parent? Plowing the path for your child to insulate your child from any disappointment, from any possible reverse academically, socially, emotionally, and this is why a lot of these kids, even as young adults, are so emotionally needy, because they have never been tempered.
Never been through the disappointment and learning the resilience of getting over the hurt and learning to ignore people, and that's a piece of it too, right? And the conversation is encompassing all of it. It's encompassing the little pieces. It's also encompassing the really devastating effects where the harassment really is widespread and it is constant, and it results up to and including children who we've seen have committed suicide because of it. It's a hard discussion to have, but do we want to just turn that over to the school to try to police that? I'm just not sure. And
I know how I personally would answer that, but I'm not everybody.
And where's it come from? In terms of where's this case law come from and how are people making arguments? Believe it or not, it's coming from a Supreme Court case called Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community School District. Guess what year that case came out in?
Oh, boy. I'm thinking... Tinker. I'm thinking 1958.
1969. And it is a monumental Supreme Court case that dealt with the concept of student free speech, in that districts may try to say in the cyberbullying argument that they can't regulate student speech. It comes back to Tinker. So what was Tinker about? In the Tinker case back in 1969, a bunch of students were suspended for wearing black armbands to protest the Vietnam War. That's what happened. And they wore it to school, and the court ultimately held that it was a political statement, and because of that, it was protected by the First Amendment. So the question then becomes, although they upheld the fact that that was a political statement and free speech, the court also commented, and this is what's being used now in the cyberbullying discussion, is they started to comment on when would it be okay for a school to prohibit some type of expression. And that's where substantial disruption comes from. It comes from Tinker. So if the expression, the communication would substantially interfere with the work of the school or impinge upon the rights of other students, that's when the school can step in. That's where their authority is to talk about expression and speech.
Seems inapposite to me, because in Tinker you're talking about disruption to the school education process, and if I'm hearing what you're saying in the instant application, they're talking about guaranteeing or not guaranteeing, but trying to reinforce the safety of students on and off campus.
Well,
is that not a different argument?
Well, therein kind of lies the rub, right? Which is, how do we thread the needle between, and that's one of the biggest pieces of the discussion right now, right? Which is, are we really talking about the standard being that we have to show that it disrupted the entire school environment, or do we just have to show that it's really disrupting the school environment for Johnny or Susie because of the effect on them? Right now, certainly the plaintiff's attorneys, the trial attorneys, the advocates trying to help kids who are truly being harassed are arguing that disruption doesn't need to be the whole school environment. It doesn't need to be the lewd speech at some assembly. It doesn't need to be the giant banners that talk about why people should be allowed to use drugs. It can be simply the effect on one kid to be able to go to school and be safe and concentrate and do their work and function mentally, physically, etc.
I don't know.
The safe environment piece, right? In after 1969 in Tinker, we started to carve out some other things, right? We carved out lewd speech at an assembly. We carved out the banner issue. That was the Morse case. But again, right now, we are literally going back to Tinker. That's what we talk about. And there's really no consensus right now, Bob, on what constitutes a substantial disruption.
So this is just being developed by case law now. Case by case, here we go. Building the blocks.
You got it. We are in the process of building the blocks. We're having a hard time building the blocks, again, because we don't have good case law that's hitting the books, that's got any kind of consistent message, because so many things are settled beforehand, or the motions that are dispositive and keeping the cases going forward or not don't address that piece. And so they don't have any language that we can use moving forward. And the case law examples are pretty interesting. So there was, try to justify these things in your mind. There's a Kowalski versus Berkeley County Schools case, okay? Student gets suspended for creating a MySpace page. That'll date the case law to you for those that are savvy about social media. MySpace page at home that ridiculed another student. It encouraged other people to jump on MySpace and post comments to make fun of that person too. And in that case, the court upheld the school's authority to discipline and discipline that student for creating the MySpace page. And the reason being, it said the school has a compelling interest in regulating speech that disrupts the work of the school. Okay. So there's one. There's one block. Justify it with this one. JC, we've got to use initials. Courts use initials when we're talking about minors. JC versus Beverly Hills Unified School District. In this case, kid makes a YouTube video at home, denigrates a classmate, profanity-laced rant about another kid, and the court says that's not sufficiently disruptive. The video wasn't violent, it wasn't threatening, it didn't lead to any confrontations at school, and the school tried to say, well, it was okay for us to discipline the kid because we were concerned that it was going to create gossip at school, that there was going to be an increase in cyberbullying, more YouTube videos or posting on social media, and the court said, no way. It's way too speculative for you to guess about how a bunch of these kids are going to react and how they might do something in the future. There's really no evidence that you can give us that there's a reasonably foreseeable risk that there's going to be a future problem because of this YouTube video. And no, we're not going to let you discipline in that context.
I would say that the outcome was correct. I mean, it's like, I remember there was a case when I was in school where there was an old railroad overpass, and the kids would climb up there and they would post all kinds of personal.
They would write things with their spray paint cans.
Yeah, they would spray paint or whatever, and there was the posting of somebody's nickname that was really derisive and negative and embarrassing. That was put on this overpass that everybody could see when they drove underneath it.
Right.
So I don't remember anybody committing suicide over that or threatening it. I think somebody was disciplined and was told to go up there and paint it over by his or her parents. But I mean, how far do we want to go with this? I mean, there's the real risk of curtailment of First Amendment issues here. Of First Amendment speech, and again, we can't be universal guarantors of the feelings of our kids.
Well, and that's the big argument right on the other side, which is we can't be universal guarantors of the emotions of our kids day to day. And are we doing them a service if we try? Are we creating this generation of people who they're not going to be in a bubble their whole life? They need to learn how to deal with these things. They need to be able to react appropriately. They need to be able to regulate their emotions. And are we creating a generation of kids who doesn't have that ability to emotionally regulate because people are stepping in? That's one side of it. The flip side is we have kids who are really struggling and they can't get away from it. They can't ever get away from it. People can drive away from the overpass. These kids can't get away from the social media and the technology. It's a problem.
It is a problem, and that's why we're talking about it here on Off the Record on WYSL. We'll be back.
Out on the street, I was talking to a man. He said there's so much, but there's nothing, man, that I don't understand. You shouldn't worry, I said, that ain't no crime. 'Cause if you get it wrong, you'll get it right next time.
Trappist monks worldwide have dedicated their lives to seeking union with God, supporting themselves through the work of their hands for hundreds of years. In 1953, centuries-old traditions came home with the building of the Abbey of the Genesee, where monk's bread has been baked for almost 65 years. White, raisin, cinnamon, sunflower with rolled oats, whole grain, delicious Genesee rye, and more. Ask for monk's bread at your local market or visit the bakery store at the Abbey in Pifard. Your purchase of monk's bread supports the monk's simple life of prayer, spiritual reading, and work. Now, the monk's bread traditions of quality and good taste can help your school, church, service club, or other group raise money with a monk's bread fundraising program. Folks can't resist the great taste and fresh quality of Monk's products. Get details at monksbread.com and click on the fundraising page. Let Monk's Bread help with your group's next fundraiser.
If you're looking to market and grow your business, make new business connections, and give back to the community in a meaningful way, consider joining the Greece Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest suburban chamber in Monroe County, and we offer networking, education, marketing, insurance, and advocacy. You do not need to live or work in Greece to join. Our members come from throughout the region. In short, we're better together, and together, we're moving business forward. Visit greecechamber.org or call 585-227-7272 to join today.
Suffering a serious injury because of medical malpractice, nursing home neglect, dangerous conditions on property, or a car accident can make your life feel like it stands still. How will you provide for your family and overcome this loss? I'm Julie Jordan DePalma. I'm a trial attorney, but I'm also the daughter of someone who suffered a disabling injury. When you need someone to provide compassionate guidance to your family, but be a fearless advocate to your opponent, call the law offices of Jordan DePalma at
585-673-3053.
For breaking news,
Right now, a police investigation is underway in this city.
Police are still working to determine exactly what happened here tonight.
for weather where you live,
A nice chance for some sunshine. Travel overnight into tomorrow will be challenging.
for investigative reports.
We're about to show you the most unique crime prevention story we've ever done.
Who's going to know more about breaking into homes than the people who actually did
Watch News 10 NBC. It's where WYSL listeners get their news. Julie Jordan DePalma's Off the Record on WYSL 92.1 FM and 1040 AM. Online at WYSL1040.com.
So in talking about cyberbullying and schools' authority to regulate it, to discipline for it, we've talked a lot about whether it's right or wrong or indifferent, but I think no matter what, at this point of the show, what I want people to know is that schools have the authority to do it, that more and more they are including cyberbullying in their codes of conduct. They are discussing when cyberbullying and forms of it are going to be seen as violations of that code of conduct, and therefore they are going to discipline. So parents are on notice, and as hard as it is to police, we've got a duty to our kids to do it, to help them use these forms of communication, to help protect them from it, and also to know if our child is the one that uses it in the inappropriate way, what's going to happen. So I really would recommend to parents, familiarize yourself with the codes of conduct. Jump online. If you don't still have the packet that came at the beginning of the school year, you can get right online and you can see it. And I pulled up, just for purposes of the show today, a few, just to see how are people actually day-to-day addressing this. So I've got the Brighton Central School District Code of Conduct for 2017-18
I know
in
it well.
front of me. Do you know it well, Bob? I pulled it up because I thought of you. I thought you're going to want to know.
Is this going to be graded?
It will not be graded.
Okay,
Don't
all
worry.
right.
But
Good.
I have it here for you in case you want to refer to it.
Thank you.
So page 5, cyberbullying, and they have a whole definition for it right here in the Code of Conduct at the beginning, so everybody understands what it means. Means harassment or bullying where such harassment or bullying occurs through any form of electronic communication. May occur both on campus and off school grounds, and can involve student use of the district internet system or student use of personal digital devices. It's a long definition, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm cutting and pasting here as I'm talking to you. But what's interesting about it is we've talked about Tinker and how that underlies everything. Some codes of conduct refer to it and some don't. Brighton specifically refers to Tinker, and it says cyberbullying that occurs off campus that causes or threatens to cause a material or substantial disruption in the school could allow school officials to apply the Tinker standard where a student's off-campus speech, which is in quotes, meaning any of these forms of social media speech as well,
Forms of expression,
may be subject to formal discipline by school officials when it is determined that the off-campus speech did cause a substantial disruption or threat thereof within the school setting. Such conduct could be subject to appropriate disciplinary action in accordance with the district code of conduct and possible referral to local law enforcement authorities. So there you have it. They're telling you flat out, we can and may refer to Tinker if cyberbullying comes into the mix.
Earlier in the program, you referred to a negligence standard.
Sure.
Contributory negligence possible, impeding parents who aren't policing their kids' activities, aren't keeping their kids on an appropriately short leash, are showing disregard for their children's actions.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a problem with that because you're going to have a problem showing that that this was really an instrumentality of harm to get over really a lot of what's out there, which is you can't go sue a parent for their kids' behavior. You can't get to their homeowner's policy because their kid did something wrong at school, etc. And sometimes where there's truly a dangerous instrumentality that the parents gave them in order to create it. Can you make some arguments? You may. But I don't see that. I don't see bringing other moms and dads into this. I see bringing the school districts in because, believe it or not, now they've thrown it in their code of conduct. So now they're saying that they have created a standard whereby they are going to address it. Now, if they have notice and information about these things going on or issues between kids, their code of conduct allows them to address it and they don't. Now you've got some negligence going on for failure to abide by their own policies and procedures. So that can flip both ways. Victor, I pulled up Victor's got the definition of cyberbullying, and it incorporates it into its code of conduct too. Avon, I pulled up, that's in front of me here too, and they also highlight cyberbullying, and they not only do they highlight it, but they've got it in bold and sticking out that it includes cyberbullying off school property where such acts create or would foreseeably create a risk of substantial disruption within the school environment.
There it is, substantial.
There you go again, where it's foreseeable that the conduct, threats,
again, yeah.
intimidation, or abuse might reach school property. And it's interesting the way they do that definition, because we talked about, does it have to affect the whole school environment or just the individual kid? And those seem to be written to suggest that it's just within the school environment and maybe not everybody. So cyberbullying is real. You look at the percentages, 92% of teenagers go online every day. 73% of it do it through a smartphone. There's a study out that says that. There was also another study in this Trial Magazine article referenced 10,000 children between the ages of 11 and 18. They put the survey question to them. 25% of them reported that they had been cyberbullied, according to these definitions that are out there.
Surprised it's that low.
I thought it'd be higher too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I was bullied in school. Obviously not cyberbullied because that technology didn't exist then. But I think it's very common.
I think it is too. I've seen it. I've watched it as a parent for my kids, for other kids, for friends who are at school who are telling me stories of what they see go on. The kids are on the technology 24 hours a day, in school and out of school, and as best the schools try to regulate when they can have those devices and when they can't, they can only do so much. Those kids are still communicating every aspect. We didn't even talk about the criminal law, but aggravated harassment in the second degree, up to a year in jail or 3 years probation, because it's a Class A misdemeanor in New York. It will be interesting to see if the cyberbullying piece starts getting tapped into that criminal procedure law as well in that instance.
What are the elements of that crime?
Criminal piece. Well, for example, that's got, it's in front of me, but that has aspects of using telephone communication for no legitimate purpose other than to harass somebody, communicating anonymously or otherwise by telephone, computer, or any other electronic means, or by mail, or by transmitting or delivering any other form of communication, a threat to cause physical harm to or unlawful harm to the property of that person. So that focus is more on the physical piece, and that the person that it reached knew or reasonably should have known that the communication would cause the person to reasonably fear harm.
Before we
it'll
run
be
out
interesting to see if those two things start to go together.
Before we run out of time, resources for parents?
Resources for parents. There is a cyberbullying research center that you can reach at cyberbullying.org. It will go through all the different bullying laws that are out there in New York, the legislation. The other resources, obviously your own school district. Get on their home pages, look at the codes of conduct, find out who your DASA officers are. If your child is having an issue, reach out to the DASA officer. You can put in an anonymous complaint and have an investigation started, so that if you do need help, if you're a parent looking out for your kid and you're doing your best and they're in harm's way, call the school counselor, call the vice principal, call the DASA officer. The laws are out there to help protect the kids. So your local school district can be really beneficial to you to help.
And then police your kids too.
Talk to your kids.
Right.
Have dinner. Grab the phone and look at it. I know I do.
Well, there you go. And that's the voice of Julie Jordan DePalma. Julie, give them some contact information for your practice, if you would.
Sure. It's always wonderful to talk with everybody and be here. When I'm not here recording, I am at the law offices of Jordan DePalma, and the number there is 585-673-3053. Thanks for letting me spend some of your Saturday and Sunday with you. See you next week.
You bet. See you next time on Off the Record.